we also know that we have two kind of variables, right? What kind of variables we have? The value, the primitive type of variables. And then we have object data types, right? The data types of variables, correct? Primitive are things like, we have 8 types, right? Byte, integer, short, long, double, and so on. String, something that we thought is primitive, is not. Why? Capital letter, right? Name start with uppercase. So it's a special type, actually object type. All right, so when we say primitive data type, things like integer, if I have integer a equals to 10, always remember they are stored in stack. Primitive data type, they store the value itself, right? Primitive data type, they are also value type. So it stores the value in the memory space, okay? Value. So far, so good, everyone? So same thing like double D equals to 9.8. So D stores the value, okay? For object type, okay, object type things like string s equals to mk, okay? So s is a object type, string is an object type, right? Object data type. Object data type, they are reference type. Reference type meaning I do not hold the actual value in the stack. What I do is I have an address. Okay, I hold an address in the memory, okay, in the stack. And this address will then point to somewhere else in the memory, in the heap, okay? Previously, I keep on saying memory, right? Now we know that it's pointing to somewhere in heap, okay? A string pool. For string is a bit special. We put it in a string pool. Why? Because your JVM want to optimize it for you because string is so commonly used, right, in programs, okay? So string is going to be stored in string pool. Here is where MK resides. This is where the value of the string resides in your heap. So for stack, the value of the variables are stored in, for primitive data types, okay, the value of the variables are stored in stack. For object type, what is stored in stack is the address, okay? Address meaning address referencing the actual referencing the actual where the actual value resides in your heap. Okay, so for object type, it holds address in the stack, okay, where the values are stored in the heap memory. Okay, so far everybody okay? So that's about object type, right? So if I have person, P1 equals to new person, same thing, right? Where is P1? What is contained in P1 here? Let me see your chat. What is in P1?
A new person.
It's an address, right? Address referencing, okay, ugly drawing, right? Somewhere. Remember heap very disorganized one, the memory size. Each allocation, right? Each allocation is of different size, okay? Unlike stack. Each slot here is of the same size. Why? Because we know that it only stores the actual value. What's the largest size of what data type has the largest size for primitive data type? Long.
Double.
Double, long, 64 bits, right? Okay, that's the largest. So the actual value is being stored here. Correct, Andrew? So P1 is going to store the address in the stack, okay? And this address is actually pointing to somewhere in the heap, okay? The memory space in the heap, yeah? So memory space in the heap will contain whatever instance variables information that person class has. If person class has an age, then I will have age here. Okay, so default, right? Based on this one line of code only, person P1 equals to new person. Based on this one line of code, I don't have any information of age yet. Age is auto-initialized. Why? Because all instance variables are auto-initialized. Okay, so far so good. Okay.
Yes.
So if this is all right, then let's go to array, right? You guys say got a bit confused with array, right? What happened to array? Array is also an object. Okay, so an object. So if I have array, I'll show you guys how to declare an array in a bit. Who can tell me how to declare an array? What's the syntax to declare an array? Integer, AR, square bracket. Square bracket indicates array. Okay, this indicate array. And then this is, I'm using the initializer method. Remember in the lecture I mentioned there's two ways to initialize array, right? So this is a shortcut way. I directly have all the elements in it. Okay, so basically if I say something like, this is one way, right? Let's draw the heap. If I have integer array, we can put it here or later. Okay, integer array, I like to do it this way, equals to new integer array. Okay, must tell me the size. For array, you have to tell me the size. Why? Because it's fixed. Okay, once the array is created, you cannot simply add elements or remove elements of an array. Okay, so if I have a ARR, so ARR here in stack, because it's an object type, right? Meaning I store the address. Okay, this address gonna point to somewhere in the heap that contain two slots. How I know? Because you tell me already there are two slots that can contain values of type integer. Okay, so for array is also auto initialize. Auto initialize, so for integer it will be 0, just like your instance variable, right? Okay, can? So array, array, index starts with, how do we assess elements of an array? We have to assess it through indexing. Okay, so array index starts with 0, and then this is at index 1. Okay, then so on and so forth. Can? Okay, if we go back to here, the initializer method, right? Integer AR already have some values in it, right? So how AR looks like is that AR is an address that points to heap that has 4 memory slots. Okay, so these 4 slots gonna contain the value. What value? I already directly, during initialization, I already give default values, not default values. I already provide values to each of the slot. So I already say that these are 1, 9, 2, 34. Okay, can? And then remember I talked about string. We actually simplified the representation in your Alexandra. Very simplified representation of your string. In actual string, they are stored in string pool. Okay, so I think I draw this diagram and things like that. Okay, so basically for string, your JVM will actually want to optimize the resources for you. Okay, so if you declare string str equals to dot, then later you declare another string with the same content. So what your JVM will do is that I'm gonna go and check in string pool first. If there is already a content which is similar, I will give the address to your variable here. Okay, so STR3 and STR1 will have the same address. Unless you explicitly mention that, no, I want to put it into a separate memory in the heap. Then new string indicates that. Okay, new string indicates that, so it will be somewhere else in the string, in the heap, not in the string pool, not in the existing one. Okay, so it will have a different address. Can? So far okay? So far okay, boys and girls? Any questions so far? This one, you guys, I always find visualization helps me with my understanding. So hopefully you all also find the same, okay? So integer, for T1, we are talking about how's the memory diagram like, okay? Memory flow diagram like for this particular example of copying values in between primitive data types, between integer, okay, variables. So for here, this one is exactly like our, okay. So what happened here, this is exactly like the one in your reading material. If I have two integer, okay, where are the values stored? In your stack, okay, they are all in your stack. when I say integer 2 equals to integer 1, okay, whenever you see whenever you see this line of code, integer 2 equals to integer 1, what steps your compiler do for you? Yeah. Okay, whenever you see something like that, integer 2 equals to integer 1, what it does is that it will go to the memory space, right? Integer 1, integer 2. So these are in stack. Stack store the primitive data type. The actual value are stored in stack, right? The actual value. So initially it was 1, integer 2. Okay, when you see integer 2 equals to integer 1, the step that is taken is that we will go to integer 1, get the value stored in integer 1, which is 1 in this sense, in this example. And then we're going to make a copy of this value, and assign it and store it into integer 2. So what is stored here is actually a copy of the value 1. So now integer 2 has the value 1. Can? Very easy, right, for this? Okay, the confusing one would be for example 2, right? On person P1, P2. Okay, person P1 and P2, they are of reference type or object type, right? So where does it take place? Okay, person P1, P2, in stack, they hold addresses. Address that reference P1 object. Address that reference P2 object. Why? Because I say P1 equals to new person, P2 equals to new person, right? So each of it, they are referencing different objects. Okay, so different memory space in the heap. And then you set value, set name Elena, and set each one. So Elena will have this memory space, the one referenced by P1. How do I know it's P1? Because I say P1 dot set name. P1's instance variable will be reset the value, okay? Modify the value. So P1, now Elena and 1. Then when we say P2 dot set name, I'm identifying the set name. Whose set name? P2's object, okay? So P2's object change its name to Jake and H2, Jake and H2. All right, can? Okay, but the confusing part is this line of code. When P2 equals to P1, okay, P2 equals to P1, like I said earlier, right, what we do is that we're gonna go to P1. What is contained in P1 is an address of P1, right? So I'm gonna copy and make a copy of this address of P1. So now I assign this copy to P2. So now address of P2 becomes address of P1, correct? So when I do that, meaning P2 is no longer pointing to P2, is now pointing to P1 here. Okay, so when I say P1 dot set age to 7, so P1's age now change directly 7, right? Then what happened if I call P2 dot get age? What will be the value of P2 dot get age, boys and girls?
1? Oh, no, 7.
7, right? 7, because why? Okay, P2 dot get age, P2. Go to P2, look here, memory space, dot get age, get the age. What is written is 7. Can? Clearer now? Any more question now? Felix especially. Is it clearer
Miss,
now?
Yes.
Yes?
Miss,
Yes.
just now the have an example about the string. The A equals to dog and the B also equals to dog. But what if I change the yes? But what if I change the value of A1 to maybe cat? The B will not change, isn't it?
Okay, let's go back to the example. Okay, again. Yes, this example is it?
Yes.
Then your question is?
String 1 equals to dog and string 3 also equals to dog.
Okay,
Then
now?
they just like the person class, they have the point to the same address. But what if I change the string 1 to cat? Instead, the string str3 will be also changed to a cat.
Okay, no. Only for string is different. Very good question, Chi Yong. Okay, good. So for string, let me show. from string is different, okay? Because string is immutable. Remember not we talked about immutable. What it means is that once created, I cannot change, okay? The value don't change after created. But that doesn't mean that you cannot change str1 to something else, correct? You can change str1 to something else, right or not? Okay, but what it means is that when I say string 1 changes, I will not change this directly like that. No. Okay, what I'll do is that I'm gonna create a new memory space. Create a new memory space in the string pool. So same thing, right? Create a new memory space in the string pool because already here, then Java smartly he thought your JVM thought that he's actually doing a smart thing. He's gonna give you this address lah. Okay, but if you say catch, right? So what is being done is that this memory space is gonna go to a new space that put the value cats. Got it? So string is a special thing. It's immutable. Okay, so changes in one will not reflect the other. You can try to write codes. I'll write an example code for lecture next week. Can? Why I'm not doing the code today or now because I'm afraid. If we have time after we cover today's tutorial, we can do that. Very easy. Okay. Did I answer your question, now, Chiyong? For
Yes, thank
string
you.
is a bit different. Okay. Means if person P0 equals to P1, both person P0 and P1 are addresses and address can be used for method. What do you mean by address can be used for method? I don't get what you mean by the question. Reword it, Sujay. Okay, so P2, you guys are okay, right? This example, all right? So Java strings are immutable. It's a bit more complex situation, a special situation for string. But P1 equals to P2, the example that we did earlier, right? The drawing that we did earlier, that applies to all object type, whether it's person, it's dog, vehicle, or any, okay? Even arrays. Can? Okay, so quickly go to your T3 here. T3 is to introduce you on using arrays. I'll come back to your question, okay? You reword the question. T3, it asks you to actually code the following array declaration. Then now we are asked to write a piece of code that prints the content of the array backwards. How do we print the content of array backward? Okay, if you go to here, yeah, I already wrote here. Please ignore this static, okay? It's just that I wanted to put everything in the main and all these other methods in the same class. That's why I'm putting static there. We will learn about static later on, okay? Then this will, you will understand why I'm putting static here. Ignore this, okay? For your lab task, you have you have your workspace, downloaded workspace. As usual, just like previous weeks, you have been given the skeleton, the header, it has already been written for you. All this method header has been written for you, okay? So what you need to do is, as usual, right? Just put your code in and then comment and uncomment the method that you want to execute. Okay, like I said, like previous week as well, you can use my write out line, it doesn't matter, or system.out.print line, it doesn't matter. Only for the last question for this week, question, I think we have 5 or 4. Only for your last question, L5, you need to use my window.write outline. Okay, I will come to that in a. Okay, back here. Write a piece of code that prints the content backward order. Okay, backward order. How do we assess an array? How do we assess array? Array, we use square bracket to assess the index. Okay, prints in backward order, which means print statement. I'm gonna print which is the last index. What is the last index of this array? 1, 9, 2, 3, 4. Negative one? Python, you guys.
1, 0, 1, 2, 3. 3.
0, 1, 2, 3, correct? Okay. 0, 1, 2, 3. Alright. Lab. Okay. 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So I printed 34. Alright. So if backward order, what they say, backward order this way. Okay, this way very straightforward, right? We print that out. But is there a better way or not? What do you think? Is there a better way to do this or not?
Can you use the colon part, like the Python one, like from 3 to 1, 3 to 0, like that?
Cannot, no shortcut, okay? For array, you can actually make this easier using a for loop. But unfortunately, we haven't learned about for loop, right? No for loop for this week's lab task as well, okay? So remember we talked about variable. Now you see whether this makes sense or not, okay? I'm gonna introduce a temporary variable that is gonna hold the index of um, the, the, the index of the array, okay? How do I access the last element of the array? What would be the index of the last element of the array? You can
Length
actually
of minus
do
1.
it this way, right? Why minus 1? Because index starts with 0, correct? 0 base, correct? Starts with 0. Okay, so if I get lm ar length minus 1, in this context, I will get what value? I will get 3, right? Correct? Okay, begins with 0, so you minus 1, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do this. But now instead of hard coding it this way, I'll put it, ln. Okay, I'm gonna put it, what do I have error here? Square bracket, don't forget, yeah, square bracket. Okay, how do I reduce it by 1? ln by 1. I can do this, right? Can or not? Does this make sense to you or not? It doesn't need maybe. See whether I get 34291. Is this a better way? 291 also, right? Okay, so in your tutorial, they actually mentioned that, okay, they didn't mention here. Have somewhere, oh, that's on your lab, okay? Okay, so this is much a better way. Why? Because this way is very hard coded, right? So let's say Mr. Chu suddenly add one more element. Then Mr. Chu asks you, will your code work or not? Then your code doesn't give the actual result already, right? Correct or not? In actual. So in actual, it's not really a good way. The best would be using a for loop. Okay, but since we haven't learned about for loop, based on your current understanding, based on what you have learned so far until week 5, you learn about post decrement, right? Increment, post decrement, pre decrement, pre increment. So you can do something like that. Okay.
Miss, I
Okay,
have a
so
question.
far.
Let's say now we have increased the array, right? Like just now. Then for the system.out.println line for the element part, isn't it we should add one more line or add more lines?
Don't get what you mean. Add what more line?
Let's say now we have four lines, right?
Yes. You mean if I add, right? Yes,
Yeah.
correct. Yes, correct. You are right. Very correct.
Okay.
Okay, so this way is better than here, but also we need to copy paste another line, right? Correct? Okay. Yeah.
Understood.
Okay, very good observation. All right, now it says that please write a statement that adds the value 56 to the end of the array. Adds the value 56 to the end of the array. Actually, I can't add element for arrays. Arrays are of fixed size. If at start I have this value 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 slots, right? At start I have 4 slots. Oops, sorry. Oh yeah, this is the one. At start, I have 4 slots. I cannot increase as I wish. I cannot like, suddenly I feel like I want to add more slots and then I add here. No, you cannot do that. Okay, I want to add one more here. No, you cannot do that. Okay, or I want to remove one. No, you cannot do that. It's fixed. Okay, the size is fixed. Okay, so write a statement that adds a value 56 to the end of the array, which means we can only replace. Okay, how do I replace? If I want to replace the last element, it will be, can I use lm here? No, right? Because now lm is actually, what is the value of lm here? 0, right? Okay, so I need to, if I want to use lm again, okay, but not to confuse you guys, I can just use here. Okay, to what value do I want to give? It says 56. Okay, 56. So if I print out, okay, if you notice, right, just now you want to print each element of the array, I have to print it this way, right? Okay. For array, if you want to print each element, like I said, you need to use loop in actual. Okay, we need to loop through so that we don't need to hard code it this way, right? Okay, one by one, which index, and so on. But for this week, because we haven't learned about for loop, we haven't learned about while loop, so you need to I'll show you another way, which is to invoke another class. Okay, there's another class that has already been written for you called arrays. In this arrays class, there's a toString method that will actually display all the element of this array. Let me just run this, then you'll see. Okay, so it will display all the elements in the array. Now you see earlier was 34, right? Okay, now the last element has been replaced with 56. Okay, there's no way for me to add and remove new element in an array. Why? Because array is of fixed size. Once created, you cannot change the size of the array. Can? Okay, another thing is that you all realize that dot length here don't have these parentheses. Unlike string, right? String we have this hello string dot length. We have this parentheses, right? And then in earlier weeks, we learned that parentheses is the best indicator that this variable, this name, is actually a method, right? Okay, so length is a method. How do I know? Because it follows by parentheses, correct? It's part of the syntax, right? Public void T4 parentheses, meaning T4 is a method. But for length, there's no parentheses. Why? Because this is actually a property. Okay, ar.length in array class is a property. It has been written for you that way. So be very careful with the syntax. A lot of time in the exam, I see student writing ar.length with parentheses for array to obtain array size. No, okay? Can? All right, the third one, it says write a statement that remove the cell with index 2 from the array. Index 2. What they want is that they want you to delete. So now it's 1, 9, 2, 56. They want you to delete the array and then you get 1, 9, 56. Can we do that? Can we resize array, boys and girls?
No.
All right, so we cannot do that. Okay, so how can we resize the array? We cannot. But what you can do is you can replace that array at index 2 with a default value 0, or if your default value is -1. So each time you look through your array, if you see -1, you know that it's of something that you want to perform some function. Okay, -1 means this reset boolean to false or reset boolean to true, things like that. Okay, so no, the answer is no, we cannot resize an array. Okay, so T4 now. T4, they ask us to declare an array list. So let's quickly do this. Okay, gonna declare an array list. Oh, I already wrote the answer here. Declare an array list. This is how we declare an array list. Okay, so we always start with array list. Okay, in order to do this, in order to use the class array list, unlike array, right, we must import. Okay, we must import .java.array list. Import, like I told you guys, you have to write before the class header. Okay, before the class header, you can specify exactly which package you want to call, like arrays or array list. Otherwise, you can always say everything. Everything else. Sorry, dot asterisk. Asterisk means everything in this library. I'm gonna import it and use it. Okay, so array list, you have to have this diamond operator. This is the syntax you need to remember. This diamond operator will then indicate, you need to indicate what's the data type of this array list. This array list is a little bit the representation, a little bit like this, you know. So list, okay, you will have a list that holds an address that points to somewhere that has some slots, right? But the nice thing about array list is that it can grow and shrink accordingly. Okay, you can actually do that, and all the sorting will already be done for you. Okay, so string, I'm going to say that, hey, each slot can hold data type, values of data type string. Okay, then I'm going to call this string. You can actually do that. Okay, then this is a syntax, new what? New array list. Person P1 equals to new person. Okay, creating an object of array list. Remember, array list, they are objects as well. Okay, why? Since they are objects, so what is in their stack? They hold the address in the stack. Okay, so array list diamond operator. Long time ago, we have to specify here as well. What's the data type? And then we have to say capacity. This round bracket, we need to indicate capacity. Okay, so capacity is like how many slots? When you create this object, how many slots do you want to have? Okay, 10 or 2 slots. Okay, this how many slots, individual element that you can hold. All right, can? But later, I think, I can't remember exactly
Yes.
when. Yes, we
But
can
here,
always
when you
do.
specify the size, can you change it after? Like, I mean, even if you put 10, can I add more than 10 elements in the array list?
And array list can grow and shrink. We will see that. Okay, so for this, right, now later Java JDK, you don't have to specify, because the default they specify for you is 10, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so let me show you array list. They have available methods that you can perform certain function. Unlike array, when I want to access array element, I need to use square bracket, right? Okay, but for array list, no, you can actually do that. Let us print this array list size, the length. Okay, at present, because I haven't have any element and I didn't mention how much, what's the capacity even, right? So you see that it's going to be 0, sorry, T4. Okay, T4. You see that my array size is 0. I don't have any element yet. Okay, once initial size 0, right? Now I'm gonna add values to it. List dot add 20, list dot add 10, list dot add 9. Okay, but the bad news is that you have to add individually, line by line, right? Unlike here, you have initializer method, right? Straightforward, correct? Okay, so that's about array. This is about array list. All right. So of course, if you explore further, there are already libraries, somebody already automate all this for you. You can always do that, okay? But in the context of this unit, okay, this is what we learn, yeah? So we can add values of array this way, yeah? So if you see, I print the list, I can directly print the value of the array list this way. Okay, system.out.println, I directly call list. Then list has a toString method. Basically, this array list class has a toString method. Similar like just now, right? I have to call arrays.toString, right? For array list, when you call list, I'm actually invoking, indirectly, I'm calling this toString method. ToString method for you already. Okay, this toString is gonna dump the state of the elements actually. Okay, they are gonna tell you what other elements, display all the elements in the list. Okay, so if you were to run this, you will get that your list has the content 20, 10, and 9. Okay, so now if you can add further. Okay, you can add further. Now, if you were to print the size here, list will give you the size 3, correct? 1, 2, 3, dot size. This is equivalent to array dot length, okay? To get the length, the size, how many elements in the array or list, array list, okay? Can? So there's also another method, list dot add, but now I specify the index. I specify the index, okay? Like just now I specify the index. I specify that in index 1 at 33. Okay, at 33. So what happened now? See what's the value? Sorry, I should print the value, otherwise it doesn't make sense. 20, it becomes 20, 33, 10, 9. So I add at index 1, add 1, add 33 at index 1. The rest, what happened to the rest? Auto push backwards, okay? So the rest, initially there's 10 and 9, directly move it, push them backwards, okay, to the later index. So this is what it does. Okay, list dot add. There are a lot of other methods. List dot set, you can go and explore. Okay, list dot set. Let's try one. Now becomes 88. Okay, then you see what happened. 20, 88. Okay, so add, I'm gonna add a new, it's gonna grow the array list for add. Okay, for set, no, I'm just modifying the element value at that particular index position. And then I can also remove. Unlike array, you cannot add or remove. Array list allow you to remove. Okay, this anybody can tell me this, which index am I removing here? List dot remove, list dot size -1. What am I removing?
Fine.
That's one.
The last one, very good. Okay, the last one. So this list dot size -1, this array dot length -1, it indicates the last element. Indicate last element. Okay, yeah, can. All right. Then there's also other methods to see that whether a list contains certain value or not. If I say list contain 9 or not, what will be the output? False. Same like your string.contain method, right? Okay, you can do things like that for array list. Nice. Okay, so let's go to your lab task then. Okay, lab 1, you are asked to display the value of the last element of an array. So similar my earlier example, right? My earlier example 43, I didn't do 4321. Our earlier example was 19234. Okay, but now they ask you to display the value of the last element. Okay, all this grandmother story here is just to tell you that if you want to display the last element, okay, if display the last element, if you want to display the last element, you simply say that array at 3. Okay, you simply say that. So what happened is that you can get the last element, which is 34. Bingo, right? So what Mr. Chu is gonna do is that Mr. Chu gonna just increase this, and I ask you, is this the last element now? No, because it will still give you 34, right? Right? Okay, so this is not a nice way to get the last element. How? Just call ar.line, use .line. Okay, this whole grandmother story is just to tell you that, hey, don't use a hard code index, basically use .line. All right, so this is your first lab task. Create an array, call my integer array, display the value of the last element. Okay, after the test, remove the element you just added. After this test, you just remove this. Okay, so retain it as it is. Okay, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, next is you need to display the product when all elements are multiplied together. And most importantly, no loop structures. Okay, we won't test you based on something that we haven't taught you. Okay, same thing. You are also not required to use any other ways of solving the problem based on mainly based on something that we have covered. Okay, don't use my integer. I'm not so particular with this. Okay, this means basically is that you can actually introduce a variable to hold the product. Okay, the product. So let's do this very quickly together. Okay, what it says, I'm going to modify from here. Okay, let's modify from this code. 1, 2, 3, 4. What's the value? 4, 3, 2, 1. 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's just remove all this. Okay, so let's try to do this. Display the product. Anybody want to give me answer? Close to 1. Cannot be 0, right? Okay, so product equals to product multiply by array at this element. Right? Then I can do this minus the value now. Then I do the same thing. I can actually do the same thing, correct? Do you all get the idea? Can you all solve this yourself or not? Can?
What?
Do you all get the idea or not? The question asks you to display the product of each element, 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. I'm doing that, right? Okay. I'm gonna just not show the complete answer. See you guys have the idea or not. Maybe it's so slow. So I only get the value 6. Why? You guys go and solve it. Thank you. Andrew, why? Too easy, is it? So do you all get the idea what am I doing here? I can actually do this in a simpler method, right? There's a simpler method of doing so. Product. Does this make sense or not? Have you all seen these things or not? Have we taught you guys about this thing? Wrong answer, right? Why? Why
Miss,
wrong answer? Yes?
even with this, we still have to know the length of the array, right?
Yes, correct. For now, it's a bit restricted in that sense. Yes, correct. Okay. Later on, when we learn about loop, this will come very easy. Okay. So far, so good. You guys solve, because this is not the answer, right? I'm not supposed to get 18. What am I supposed to get? 24, right? 24. So you guys tell me what's wrong with this. Okay, so that's lab 2. You need to display the product. They tell you not to use my integer array directly because you need to use a variable a. Okay, variable a. I did integer product. It doesn't matter as long as you have a variable to hold the product of all the multiplication. Okay, code and display the value of an expression that returns true if the third element in the array is the square root of the first element. Confusing. If the third element is the square root of the first element. If the third element, how do I get the third element? Is equal to the math dot square root of the first element. Okay, easy, right? The third element, first element. So it's a bit restricted, right? This one you have to put the actual value. There's no way to make this even better, isn't it? Okay, so that's on your lab 1. Yeah, can? Okay, lab 2. Lab 2 we need to work a bit. All right, we need to work on this a bit, understanding. Okay, you have to do a few things here. You need to generate compile error that is caused by array might not be initialized, and then runtime error, and display the length of the first element without error. Okay, this one very easy. Okay, the last one. Let's look at compile error. What is compile error? Compile error can be caused by syntax, okay? Can be caused by syntax, right? Compile error missing semicolon. The red ribbon here indicates compile error. Yeah, we know this, right? Okay, so the first thing that they want you to do is that you have these 3 lines of code, okay? By inserting statements and so on, you need to create this error. So compile error, variable my string might not have been initialized. Why might not be initialized? How to create this error, not initialized. Do they have now? No. I modify that. Okay. Do you see this error? Why? Because it's not initialized, right? If I put now, then there's no error. Okay. If I don't do anything, then it gives me error. Okay. Let's look at this. What happened? Your drawing here. Okay. String array. It says string. It's a long name, right? Let's call my str. This line of code here. String, my string array. I didn't create new object yet. Okay, I didn't create new object here. So it's actually nothing, right? I don't know what you are pointing. I'm not pointing to anything. Okay, there's no content, right? I'm not pointing to anything. Then you are trying to ask me to you are trying to print my string array, then it will tell you that, hey, this might not have been initialized. It's a compile error. Why? Just like integer, right? We know that all integer values must be initialized first before we use, right? All variables must be declared and initialized. So this will give you an error. So you need to comment it in order for your program to run, right? So in your lab, just comment this error and say that this is error, compile error. Just put some description, compile error caused by uninitialized array. Okay, uninitialized array. You type it in your own, okay. Then what happened is that, okay, then how to solve this problem? How to solve this problem? At this line of code, I'm gonna have compile error. If I put it here, will I have compile error? No. Why? Because now when I say my string array equals to new string 3, then now I'm actually creating an object. I already created an object here that has these 3 slots that's gonna hold string value, right? So I already know where I'm pointing to, the memory space in heap that I'm pointing to. So this address is gonna be parked here. Okay, so now I have an address hole in my str already. So I'm not gonna have this error. Can? Okay, so far so good? Okay, then runtime error. What is runtime error caused by null pointer exception? Okay, this line of code here, my string array equals to new string array, and new string size 3. Okay, what happened here is that arrays are auto-initialized. So what are the values contained here? They are actually null. Why? Because it's of data type string. If you're an integer, then you will have the value 0, right? Okay, so now, these are all null, okay? So what I'm trying to do is that I want to create null pointer exception error. How? If I try to do something like that, my string array, the first index, trying to say change all to uppercase. I'm trying to change the first element, the first string element, all to uppercase. This line of code is trying to do that. If you run it, you will get a, why don't I get compile error? Because I didn't run it. Okay, L2, L2. So you see the difference now between compile error and runtime error. Compile error, I can't even run other methods that do not have error, correct? Okay, I think your last week workshop quiz has that kind of question. Then runtime error, okay, I will only have that error, I will only face the error when I try to run the code. Yeah, when I try to execute. So you see, if I try to run it, I will have Java null pointer exception error. Which line of code caused this? You'll go to this line. This line of code caused it. Why? Because go to my string. What this line of code means is that my string array get the element at the first element, right? If I go to memory space heap, the first element is actually null, right? You are trying to ask null to do to uppercase. You cannot. This is a null pointer exception error, meaning you are asking something that is null to perform some methods. Yeah, so you cannot do that. All right. So again, like I said, you comment it. Okay, then you write some comment. Okay. So that's your runtime error. Runtime error only happens when you execute. Hold on. Okay, let me try to do something. Okay, never mind. Let's look at here first. Okay, there's another one type of runtime error that is caused by accessing array index out of bound exception. Okay, by trying to access array that is out of bound. Okay, out of bound meaning beyond the size of this created array. Let's see this, or even this is size 3, right? Let's try to size oops. Let's try to access array at index 3. What happened? Array at index 3 give you array index out of bound exception. Okay, why? Because the largest element, the largest index is actually the last array is at index 2. Okay, index out of bound. If I say these two, you will see what's the output. Will I have an error or not now? Any runtime error? No, right? No. Okay, can? What's angle?
Yes.
Sorry, confused, right? If you see this line of code, this weird thingy here, right? This is just telling you the address, because I call my string array. I call my string array. So what is contained in the stack is this, some weird address. Okay. So what I want to show here is that if I call the length, okay, even if I have a runtime error, you will see that runtime error means, okay, runtime error means this is displayed already, okay? I have output, but this line of code is the one that caused error. So subsequent lines will not be executed. Execution stop here, okay? Fail until this line. So runtime error index out of bound, very easy, right? Finally, display the length of the first element of my string array. How do we get the first element of the string array? First element is, let's go here. First element dot length. Is it here? Do I do it this way? Correct or not? Sorry. Do I do it this way? Is this correct? No. Now pointer. Why? Because same thing lah, right? Because my string is still null. My string is still null, right? At this element is still null. There's no information yet, right? In order for you to execute this without error, you must initialize the value of the element first. Now 0 has the string green. So here I have a string green. Okay, so here is actually pointing to somewhere in your string pool. Remember, this is address also, green. So now green dot to length, green dot to length, green dot length gives you something, right? You can invoke this. Why? Because you have values. Your string has values already. Okay, it's not null, so you can invoke a method called length. Okay, can or not? This is a bit confusing, right? First angles, okay? So if it's okay, then let's go to L3. Okay, L3 basically, this code has already been written for you in your work file. Okay, it's already been written for you. So I've already written this as well. Okay, but let's quickly just go through and then we try to predict what's the element. Okay, we try to do that. What you need to do is that for your lab 3, you recreate this exact program, but instead of using integer, you recreate for array list string. Yeah, array list string. So if I say my list dot add, now my element in the array list will have the value 3, correct? If I say dot add 1, is it 1 3 or 3 1? The element values. 1 3 or 3 1, boys and girls?
1 3.
1 3 or 3 1? See. 1 3 or 3 1? Any different answer? All say 3 1. 1 3. No. Okay, Felix, 3 1. 3 1. The next element will be added behind, right? Huh? Okay. Okay, so if here I add 0, add index 0, add 4. So what happened is that I'm gonna get 4 3 1. Why? Because earlier I told you, right? If I use add, meaning I'm growing the array list, right? So at index 0, add the value 4. So what happened to 3 and 1, the initial elements, they are gonna be pushed backwards, right? Push all the elements up one index, okay? So insert value at index 0. Now add at index 2, the value 2. So same thing, 0, 1, 2. So 1, move upper one index, okay? Then 2 gonna be replaced at index 2, okay? So if I print now, I'll get 4, 3, 2, 1, yeah? So my list dot set number 2 at set at index 2, set at index 2 the value of 7. Okay, so what is in index 2? 0, 1, 2. Index 2, so now 2 is being replaced, right? Okay, don't forget set, replace, add, grow the array list. Yeah, so if I were to print it, I'll get 4, 3, 7, 1. If I remove the first index, I'm gonna get 3, 7, 1. Yeah, 3, 7, 1. Right? Easy, right? So if I say here, okay, this one a bit confusing if you see, okay? So I printed the size, I get the size 3. Add my list dot size minus 1, the value 5. What happened to the list now? 3, 7, 5. What happened to 1? Push higher one index. Correct? Are you guys following? Yeah? Okay, then next one is the same. Add at the last index the value 5. Okay, 3, 7, 5, 5. What happened to 1? Push one index higher. Okay, push backwards, right? Same thing here. Add the last index. So 3, 7, 5, 5. Now put 5. Yeah, so 1 will be push higher one index. If you were to print it, yes. Question?
Why is it 1 there again? 1 it becomes the
Okay,
last
don't
one again.
forget, this is exactly like this line of code, right? So when we add 4 at the first index, what happened to the rest of the elements? They are pushed up one index. Okay, so 3 and 1, existing one, put backwards. Okay, so same thing here. The only confusion happens because I put it at the last element. So what happens to 1 here? Push backwards, higher one index.
Isn't 1 the last element?
Yes, the last element, but now
Oh.
I'm adding.
Okay.
Adding a new element. So don't get confused. Set is the one that replace. Okay, set replace. Dot set replace, but add grow. Okay, grow the list. When you grow the list, meaning you're gonna put at certain particular index a new value. What happened to the remaining actual value? You need to push them backwards or up one index. Get or not? Get it? So that's why if you were to print it 375551, right? There's also a method called index of. Okay, index of meaning if you see I write my list or index of 5, it returns me 2. What does that 2 indicate? 2 indicate the first occurrence, the index of the first occurrence of this value. So it was 375, right? 0, 1, 2, the first occurrence. Okay, if I say index of 1, you see what would be the return value, boys and girls? Index 5, the last element, right? If I put -1, what do you think will be returned? 0 or -1?
-1.
Very good. -1 meaning not found. It tells you not found. Okay, it can be 10. I try to find whether there is index of element of what's the if the list contains this element of 10 or not. What's the index? No, not found. -1. Okay, so for your this work, what you need to do is that you need to change this to array list string. Okay, so you just create this. Okay, your list now becomes string. Okay, string value. Actually, all these you can remain it as it is. So now my list 2 dot add, instead of 3, I spell out 3. Okay, so you do the same, exactly the same program until the end, the last line. Okay, the only thing that you need to do now is that you need to you need to add on, okay, at the end of your code, add on contains a boolean expression that returns true if the array contains the string character 7. At the last line, you just do things like these 2 dot contains 7 print it out, of course, right? Okay, can That's all. Is L. That's L3 already. So far, okay, L3. Is it fine, boys and girls? We're running out of time. I'm gonna go very quickly. Yeah. If you have question, you ask me again later. Okay, so L4 is on a string actually. It's on class documentation. So if you go to if you go to string documentation, just Google Oracle string documentation. Okay, then you will see that there's a lot of notes on string class. String class has all these available method, okay, available for you to use, right? We are so used to .lang. .lang returns the length of the string, okay? Then it gives you further description, example, and so on. Yeah, so what it returns, the length. The length is of type integer, okay? So what this code wants you to do is to write a code that converts a word with letters in random and lowercase to standardize it lah, okay? Only the first word to uppercase, the remaining to lowercase, okay? So I'm going to show you what I do here. Let's use substring, okay? Before I do this, let me show you what substring does, okay? If I were to print string.substring 0 to 1, okay? You see what would be the output of L4, D. Do you see what will be in L4? It gives you substring. It's like give you substring. Okay, the name says it. All right, we start this entire string. 0. Okay, 0 excluding 1. At index 0 excluding index 1. Index 0 is D. Okay. So let's try another version, see what this does. If I say index 0 only, you see what will be the output. What do you think the output will be? Donkey, meaning substring from index 0 until the end of the string. Okay, can? So what you need to do is that you need to change this to uppercase, then the rest to lowercase. Okay, so what you can do is the substring to uppercase, correct? Because this returns you a string. So basically, this line of code returns you a string. So string first character equals to string. Okay, it gives you a string. Okay, string first character uppercase equals to first character dot to uppercase. Yeah, so I can do this entire thing in a single line of code actually. Okay, I can also do it here. Dot to uppercase. You can actually do it directly. Otherwise, if you prefer this way, it works as well. Okay, so you need to convert, okay, convert several different input words, okay. So basically, you need to store it in a converted or the result, all right? Convert equals to string first, okay. So now you see result equals to, don't want to copy this. Result equals to first character uppercase. Print result. Okay. So if you were to run this, you will see that result is actually D capital letter. So I want you to work on this so that you can actually display DONKE. Okay. 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 Yeah.
Yes.
Easy, right? So L5, that's a video from Steven. What you need to do is that you need to write in your project file, you need to align the numbers in such a way, in this form, okay? So if you go to here, that's okay, I can show you what string format does. String format, this is annoying. String format actually allows you flexibility to format the string output, okay, your string output. I wrote some codes here. So if you were to see here, what I can do is that if I have a string, okay, this string here, okay, string dot format, this double percentage sign is just to tell you that, you know, escape the placeholder, display the percentage signs. Okay, 10.5 of a floating point, 10.9, 10.5, what it does is that it's gonna give you up to 5 decimal place, 9000000. Okay, the 10 in front before the decimal point is to indicate how many spaces, the length of the length of your output. Okay, so how many spaces here actually? So if you put if you put it 50, you will see the length is wide, the length is more, right, longer, right? So you will have more spaces, more padding in front. Okay, you will see you have more padding. Oops, sorry, I put 5 now, shorter padding, right? Okay, so 10D is just to D is for any integer value, any non-floating point value, D. Sorry, I put it here 1, right? I can actually put it I here. So it's gonna just display whatever that is mentioned here. This is actually your input parameters. Okay, so for this work, what you need to do is that you need to align it. You go and play around with this 5D or 10D or whatever value that you want to put. Okay, okay, you will see that it's not aligned. Okay, it's not aligned. You can modify all these numbers to make it align. Okay, but there is something called the font, whether the font are proportional or not. Okay, some fonts, right, the number 1 and 5 is not proportional, but there are some fonts which are proportionate. Okay, so if you do this, do you see that? Because this particular font, I think it's Arial, is not proportionate. So no matter how you modify your string dot format, you cannot get it to be aligned. Okay, but if you change the font to proportionate font, then you will see this output. Okay, there's a video on it actually. So all together this week you have 5 lab tasks. Yeah. Okay, boys and girls. I think I'm late for the next class. If you all have any question, you all just drop me a email, okay? Okay, that's all for today, boys and
Okay.
girls.
Thank you,
Okay.
Miss.